You didn't choose to be born smart. Nobody does. You took your first breath in a world that already felt too slow, too loud, too small. The lights in the hospital were too bright. The sounds were too predictable. Even as a baby, something inside you was already processing, already calculating, already searching for a pattern that nobody else could see. Your mother looked at you and said you had your father's eyes. She was wrong. You had nobody's eyes. Because from the very beginning, you saw things differently. Not better, not worse. Just differently. And that difference, about that small, invisible gap between how you saw the world and how everyone else did, that gap would become the loneliest place you ever lived. You grew up fast. Too fast. While other kids were learning to tie their shoes, you were already asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. Why does the sky end? What existed before the universe? If everything has a cause, what caused the first cause? Your teachers smiled politely and changed the subject. Your parents told you to go outside and play. So you learned the first rule of being smart in a world that isn't. Be quiet about what you see. You buried it. You smiled. You pretended the questions didn't keep you up at night, but they did. Every single night, you lay in the dark and felt the weight of a mind that never stopped running. A machine with no off switch, no pause button, no mercy. And here is the thing nobody tells you about intelligence. It doesn't make you happy, it makes you aware. And awareness, real, deep, unfiltered awareness, is one of the heaviest things a human being can carry. You built yourself in a lab. Not literally, not at first. But piece by piece, experiment by experiment, failure by failure, you constructed a version of yourself that could survive in a world that didn't understand you. You learned science not because someone taught you. You learned it because it was the only language that made sense. Equations didn't lie. Physics didn't change its mind. Chemistry didn't leave without explanation. The universe followed rules, and cold, indifferent, consistent rules. And you loved it for that. Because people didn't. People were chaos. People smiled at you and meant something else. People said, "I'll always be here," and then disappeared. People needed things from you. Warmth, patience, vulnerability. Things that felt like handing someone a weapon and asking them not to use it. So you made a choice. You stopped needing people back. It started small. You stopped calling first. You stopped explaining your feelings. You replaced emotion with logic, connection with experiment, love with observation, and it worked. God, it worked so well. You became sharper, faster, more productive, more powerful. You told yourself this was growth. It wasn't growth. It was armor. And every single day you added another layer. Another joke to deflect a serious moment. Another drink to silence the part of you that still remembered what warmth felt like. Another adventure to another dimension so you wouldn't have to sit still long enough to feel the emptiness inside your chest. You became the smartest man alive. And you paid for it with every relationship you ever had. Your daughter grew up watching you leave. Not just physically, emotionally. She'd be talking and you'd already be 3 steps ahead, solving a problem she hadn't even finished describing. You weren't present. You were processing. And there is a difference. A devastating, irreversible difference. Your grandson looked up to you with eyes full of trust. And you let him. Because his admiration felt like the closest thing to love that you could still receive without flinching. But even that small, innocent connection, you kept at arm's length. Because the last time you let someone fully in, you lost them. And you decided you would never survive that again. At your peak, you were unstoppable. Portals to any dimension. Cures for diseases that hadn't been discovered yet. Weapons that could destroy galaxies. Technology so advanced that entire civilizations worshiped the blueprints you threw away as trash. You stood at the center of the multiverse and looked out at infinite versions of reality. Infinite possibilities, infinite timelines, infinite versions of yourself, and you felt nothing. That should have scared you. It didn't. Because by then you already knew the truth that most people spend their entire lives running from. Nothing means anything. Not in a poetic way, not in a dramatic way, in a cold, mathematical, undeniable way. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. It will expand for trillions more. Every empire, every love story, every sacrifice, every war, all of it, a microscopic flicker in an indifferent void. You proved it. With data, with experiments, with your own hands. And once you see that, once you truly deeply see that, you cannot unsee it. People called you a genius. They were celebrating the very thing that was killing you. Because here's what nobody understood about your power. Every solution you found revealed 3 new problems. Every dimension you visited showed you another version of a life you didn't live. Every time you saved the world, you came back to a kitchen table where a family was watching TV without you. Comfortable, warm, completely unaware of what it cost to keep them safe. You sat in your garage. You drank. Not because you were weak, because you were tired. Tired of being the only one in the room who understood the full weight of every decision. Tired of carrying information that would break anyone else. Tired of being the strongest person in every situation while slowly collapsing on the inside. If you stopped, people would die. That was the trap. That was the cage. You couldn't rest. You couldn't quit. You couldn't hand this to someone else. Because there was no one else. There had never been anyone else. You were alone at the top, and the view was not worth it. There was a moment, one specific moment, when you almost let it go. You don't talk about her. You never talk about her. But she was there. She was real. She laughed at your worst jokes and called you out on your best lies. She saw through the armor before you even knew you were wearing it. She looked at you. Not at the genius, not at the scientist, not at the legend. Just at you. The scared, tired, brilliant, broken man underneath all of it. And you loved her. Not the comfortable, distant kind of love you allowed yourself with your family. Real love. The kind that makes you feel exposed. The kind that makes you want to be different. I'd better. And then she was gone. You don't remember exactly how it happened. You've suppressed it so completely that some days it feels like a dream. Like maybe you invented her. Like maybe your mind created her as a simulation of what you needed most. But she was real. And losing her was the moment the machine inside you decided, never again. No more vulnerability. No more exposure. No more handing someone the ability to destroy you just by leaving. You sealed that part of yourself off with the same precision you used to build your greatest inventions. You were thorough, you were ruthless, you were efficient. And it worked. And it was the worst thing you ever did to yourself. Because you didn't just lose her that day. You lost the last version of yourself that was still capable of being saved. You are sitting in your garage right now. The portal gun is on the workbench. There are 17 unfinished projects scattered across the floor. There is a half-empty bottle next to your chair. Somewhere in the house, your family is living their lives. Laughing, arguing, existing. And you are 15 feet away and 1,000,000 miles apart. You could walk in there. You could put down the drink, walk through that door, sit on the couch, and just be present. Just be there. Not Rick Sanchez the genius, not the smartest man in the universe. Just a person. Just a grandfather. Just someone who is tired and scared and human. You could do that. You won't. Because the armor is too thick now. Because the habit of distance is stronger than the desire for closeness. Because some part of you, the part that remembers losing her, is convinced that the closer you let people get, the more catastrophic it will be when they leave. And they always leave. Or you always make sure they do. This is the thing about being the loneliest person in the room while looking like the strongest. Nobody comes to check on you because you trained them not to. You made yourself unneedy, invulnerable, self-sufficient. You built a personality so impenetrable that even the people who love you don't know how to reach you anymore. And honestly, neither do you. The saddest part? You know all of this. You have diagnosed your own condition with perfect clinical accuracy. You understand exactly what happened, exactly when it happened, exactly why it happened. You could write a scientific paper on your own emotional collapse, and it would be the most brilliant thing anyone has ever read. And it would change nothing, because knowing the problem and being able to fix it are two completely different things. And for the first time in your life, for the very first time, you have found something that your intelligence cannot solve yourself. So you sit in the garage, you take another drink. You look at the portal gun, and somewhere in the infinite multiverse, in 1,000 different dimensions, 1,000 different versions of you are sitting in 1,000 different garages. All of them brilliant, all of them powerful, all of them completely, utterly alone. And every single one of them is wondering the same thing. Was it worth it? You already know the answer. You just can't bring yourself to say it out loud. The smartest people don't struggle because the world is too complex. They struggle because they feel everything. And they taught themselves to feel nothing. And somewhere between those two versions of themselves, they got lost and never found the way back.